Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and this weekend is Kaldheim Prerelease Weekend. Now, depending where you are in the world, things might look a little different from location to location, but in most places, you can go to your local store and pick up a pre-release pack. This will give you everything you need to build a sealed deck of Kaldheim. And even if you can't gather in person, it's a great way to build a deck to play on a website like Spelltable or Discord with your friends. So what exactly is inside and how should you build a Kaldheim sealed deck? Well, let me walk you through all of it today. All right, so here is a Kaldheim pre-release pack. I'm gonna go ahead and crack it open and show you everything that you get in one of these. So let's take off this plastic here and see what is inside. Okay, this will give you everything you need to play your pre-release deck. So this little top cover comes off like that, folds on down. Set that over here. Okay, we've got this little thing, which doubles as a deck box, by the way, so you can store your deck in here afterwards, or another deck, whatever you feel like. You pop it open, you get a spin down D20. It's got the Kaldheim symbol on it right there. 1 through 20. You can spin all the way down. You keep your life total on it. So you're at 20, you take 5 damage, you just rotate right on down, you're at 15. Then you open all this up and you get a pre-release card, which is pretty exciting. It's a random, rare, or mythic stamp from the set with the pre-release date on here. So that's Arnie Broken Bow for me. Very cool. You get this card right here, which I believe, yeah, it's got a code on the other side for arena stuff. I'm not going to show you my code though, because you would all enter it and take away my 6 Kaldheim boosters. So don't want to let that happen. But yeah, set that right there. We've got this divider, which can go in here to divide your deck and your sideboard inside of the box, which is nice. And then, of course, you've got your 6 Kaldheim booster packs. And it is these booster packs which you will do deck building with. Also, to help you out, you've got this little insert right here. It's got this very metal poster on one side. You can put it up. Super cool art style here. Almost like a little anime inspired. Very neat. And then on this side, it's got some information about how to build a pre-release deck. So I'm going to put this away, and I'm going to crack open these 6 packs and show you what happens next after you crack open your packs. And because I know you're all wondering it, here are the rares I opened up. These pulls were wild. I opened up 9 total rares. Normally you get 7, 6 plus the pre-release card, but I actually opened up 2 different foil rares, which is pretty wild. Top that off with 4 different rare sagas, and this is definitely a stacked sealed pool. So the very first thing you'll want to do, of course, is open up all of your packs. Then you'll have a big stack of cards like this. And maybe you read through them as you're opening them, maybe you just have a big stack, either way is okay. Then you want to take these cards and you want to sort them by color, like this. All right, so I have my cards all sorted by color. Monocolor cards up here, multicolored cards down here, artifacts here, and also lands. Don't forget that in this set, you will want to sort out all of your basic lands because you will actually need the snow lands to activate abilities on your cards. You can't add additional snow-covered lands into your deck. You have to open them in your sealed pool. Now from here, you're going to want to narrow it down into 2 colors that you want to play with. You can play 3, and usually this is called splashing, where you play 2 main colors and a small amount of a third for some cards that you really like. But in general, I recommend sticking with 2 colors. How do you choose which ones to play? Well, there's a few different ways you can do it. You could just pick your 2 favorite colors. That's really, really easy, right? Pick the 2 colors you like the most. But if you want to be a little more nuanced, there's a few things to look for as you're selecting your colors. The first thing you could look for are just really strong general cards, or bombs. For example, take this Crippling Fear that's right here. This is a card that will kill off one of your opponent's creatures, and maybe even multiple of your opponent's creatures. It's really easy to make this kill off a bunch of their stuff for only 4 mana. It also does something very important, which is a removal spell. Anything that kills off your opponent's creatures is probably worth playing in limited, for the most part. The Squash right here is another great example. It's a spell that deals 6 damage, and that's the kind of thing you would be happy to have around, even at 5 mana. Another big thing to look for is Evasion. These are creatures that are harder to block for your opponent. Often sealed deck games can take a while, and being able to break through of a board stall is really, really important. So for example, a common keyword with this is flying. This card right here, Starnhelm Cursor, a little 3 mana 2/2 flyer, just helps break through and deal a little bit of damage even when the ground gets gummed up. So looking through your colors for your flyers can go a long way. And finally, don't forget to look at your multicolored cards and mana fixing. For example, let's say that I've decided to be base green. Well, I can't decide another color to play, but Maha here is green-white and is an awesome legendary creature. So this is a card that could tip me over into playing white out of all my other options. Similarly, having good mana is really important, and with all of these snow dual lands hanging out in this set, maybe that's a reason you'd want to go for a color. Or if you're really ambitious, this is a great way to splash a little bit of another color into your deck. All right, now let me build the deck and show you what I got. So I selected blue and red, and here's my final deck. Let me tell you a bit about what you're seeing here and why it's sorted this way. First of all, there were a couple things that drew me to blue and red, but a huge one were all of the pieces of removal. There are 5 different pieces of removal before getting to Battle of Frost and Fire, which is a board sweeper. That's huge. It's pretty easy for that to destroy everything on the board, and especially just my opponent's things in some cases, because I have so many giants. A bunch of my creatures are giants, like Bergstrider, Cinderheart Giant, Undersea Invader, even some changelings, like the Mistwalker and the Litjara Kinseekers, will stay alive after that Battle of Frost and Fire goes off. Now, why is it sorted this way? Well, we want to look at our deck in terms of what is called a mana curve. The way this works is you want to lay your cards out from lowest mana cost to highest mana cost to see what you can do on every single turn. The reason why is to make sure that you have a good curve of spells as the game goes along. If I had a bunch of really early 2 and 3 drops, well, I'd run out of gas really fast and wouldn't have heavy hitters to close out the game. But similarly, if all my cards were 5 and 6 mana, I would get beat up in the first several turns of the game. Looking to make sure that you have a good mana curve of cards you want to cast, with cards early and cards late, make sure that you can stay active and relevant throughout the entire game. Now you'll notice that I have some cards up here and some cards down here. Why is that? Well, the reason why is you want to look at when you're actually going to be playing that card. So generally I sort my creatures and cards I'm going to play on curve up at the top, and my cards that I'm going to play off curve at the bottom. For example, any of these 3 drops I would happily cast on turn 3, but Demon Bolt and Raven Form I'm probably not casting on turn 3. They're removal spells generally saved for later in the game, and they do have Foretell, which I'll get to in a moment. But it's important to note it's not simply a creature and non-creature distinction. For example, take Cosmos Elixir. This is an artifact, but I'm very happy to play it on turn 4 most games. When all is said and done, you're looking for about 23 spells, so creatures, artifacts, sorceries, instants, everything, and about 17 lands. You'll note here the 5 snow-covered lands. These are important in my deck for cards like Avalanche Caller, Pilfering Hawk, and Bergstrider. Depending on how many cards you have that care about snow will influence how many of these lands you should play. You'll note that in my deck, I'm even playing some off-color snow dual lands just because they generate snow mana. And if I really needed the snow mana, you could even consider playing a off-color basic land to help generate your snow. But this deck is not that desperate. Now this deck has about 14 creatures in it, which is at the lower end of where I'd normally play, but totally fine. Generally, I'd expect about 14 to 18 creatures in your deck. Another important thing to think about if you can is how your deck is going to play out. In this case, it's a long game deck. I'm going to use all of my removal, plus card advantage like Glimpse the Cosmos, Behold the Multiverse, and Cosmos Elixir to make sure that in the long game, I have more cards than my opponent, and my opponent will not be able to deal with all the removal spells I have. It's not a quick aggressive deck. That'll really be influencing what cards go in here. For example, take Shackles of Treachery. This is a card that's quite good in an aggressive deck because you can take control of your opponent's creature and attack them with it. But in a slower deck like this, it's not going to be very strong for us. Consider what your deck is doing as you're looking for cuts from your deck. Now let's talk about how Foretell sits on your mana curve. Should they all just be in the 2-drop spot? Well, first of all, I think no, that's a little misleading. You're just going to end up with a huge pile of 2-drops that doesn't actually tell you anything useful. Second of all, a decent amount of time, the costs are pretty equivocal. For example, with Behold the Multiverse, paying 2 and then 2 to cast it again on your opponent's turn, for example, is still 4 mana that you're spending. There are some exceptions to this rule, especially at higher rarities if the Foretell cost is drastically different than its mana cost, but in general, I would keep them where they sit. In this deck, Scorn Effigy is the only card I considered putting in the 2 mana cost slot, because it foretells for 0 on the next turn. But I decided that enough of the time I would be able to play a creature on turn 2, and then I might still want to cast it on turn 3, or maybe even foretell it on turn 4. So 3 just seemed like the right spot to put it. It's not a very strong card, but this deck is just a little bit creature light, which is why I was putting it in there as a stopgap card to get to my later end spells and all of my removal. After this, add in basic lands to fill out your deck, not snow-covered ones though, and you are good to go. And there you have it, some tips for how to build a sealed deck. Do you have any more questions about sealed deck? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll talk with you again on Wednesday. And And in the meantime, you have a lot of fun preparing for the Kaldheim pre-release weekend. You got this.
Let's see what we get for our foil. Schem. What? Okay, check out. What is this? This is amazing. So we get foil, signed, rare, foil rare. Showcase uncommon. Okay, this is nuts.